Hi, I'm Jennifer Poole,
And I'm Dave Poole.
and this is our 20 days.
Okay, you and I are self-admitted recovering technologists. Um, why is it in so many cases the solution to a problem is essentially reboot?
Oh.
And as a a serial problem solver, that bothers me.
Yeah, I call it my first golden rule of computing is if it doesn't work, turn it off, turn it back on. And you're right, it solves. I have to do that with my Amazon Fire TV Cube every so often, and they just all seem to get. Yeah, and I think there's leakiness that happens with any
Yeah,
application, and after a while it just builds up. There's nothing fundamentally
right.
wrong, but you'll never track down where the squeaks are coming from, so to speak. So yeah, turn it off, back on. Now, like security, it's like, well, can't there be a way to solve this like holistically? Start at the top and say, okay,
Yeah,
what typically causes this, and just choke those out, like all the memory leaks and those kinds of things. Just design a language that can't leak. So you fundamentally blow the problem away at the beginning, but generally in the money making world we live in, and it was certainly true 40 years ago, features come first.
yeah,
Manageability.
that's the way to put it. And you're just enough older than me that you probably saw a lot more of this than I did in my early computer education. So my first exposure to this really was when I first joined Mead Research. They had a number of systems that they had written that were controlling machinery in the paper mill, and these were based on things like DEC PDP-8s and things like that that had very limited memory. I mean, I remember one thing in particular that they did that was related um, to a super calendar stack that was running on a PDP-8 that only had 16K of memory.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no such thing as memory leaks because there wasn't any memory to leak. you know? So if you wanted, so that's where I really learned, the value of at that time we called overlays. You overlay different segments of code in memory based on what you needed when you needed it. Um, so, uh, and I think a lot of today's technology problems that are solved by rebooting are because we've built two or three generations now of really sloppy programmers because you've got 4,000 terabytes of space to play in and
Yeah.
you don't have to clean up after yourself.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. Um, I lived through those times when you had so little memory, you had to just, and performance. I mean, it was not
Oh,
just memory.
yeah,
You had to, I mean,
right.
the idea of just, using a higher level language in some cases just wasn't going to work. It had to be in the basic assembler
Yes.
where it wasn't going to fly that much. I think back to the amount of capacity we had at Wright State, the IBM 360 line, and it's amazing to me how much work we actually pumped out of it. I mean, we got both the students' workloads through, and we got all of our administrative work through, and we never, yeah, we'd fill up the machine a little bit, and then you try to optimize things for a while. Then you just sort of had to buy a bigger one at some point. But yeah, we
Yeah.
spent a lot of time really, really taking those resources and really squeezing everything out of it.
I always think about the scene in the movie Apollo 13 when they're looking to power up the lunar module to use as kind of their lifeboat. And they got all the people on the ground running simulations and checking this out. What order do we turn them on? What order do we turn them off? How much can we turn on? How much capacity do we have? And literally every watt of energy that was being consumed was important. And that's very similar to the early programming languages that you and I both used, and trying to figure out, okay, when you say you've got 8K of space, you have exactly 8K of space. It's not 8.1, it's not 8.5, it's 8. And the moment you trip that cord at 8K, things blow up or stop working, as the case might be. So, but that scene was always the one for me about, being, no margin for error efficient.
Yeah, that was good. That was good, and kind of one of the scarier movies I think I ever saw. Even though I
Yeah,
knew what the outcome is,
yeah,
it's
right.
still the part of the movie. And I just don't like movies in general where I know what the outcome is. That's why I don't like prequels. It's like, okay, yeah, Darth Vader, yeah, he lives, but and
Right.
there's twins, and you know what it's going to end up being. You're just wondering how they're going to get there. But in a movie like Apollo 13, it was like, yeah, I know that they get back, but I never knew how darn close it was
Yeah.
and how much they had to actually do to get it back.
And I always, I don't know if you know who Rich Eisen is. He used to be a sportscaster on ESPN, and now he's got his own uh, predominantly radio talk show, but he's on the Roku channel now. So it's video, but he has lots of sports people on there. But he also has um, more celebrity types that are not sports people, but they're sports fans, and that ends up being kind of the connection that gets them on the show. I remember seeing a couple of different interviews with Kevin Bacon, who's a really entertaining guy, just on in and of himself. And he tells the story about Apollo 13, where um, somebody suggested that to do the weightless scenes, there's a jet that NASA has where they do training for astronauts, where it to get them to weightlessness. And apparently it's basically, and I don't know, I don't remember all the details, but it's essentially one of these things where you fly about as vertical as you can fly, and then you loop and dive about as steeply as you can dive. And that creates 30 to 60 seconds of weightlessness. And the way, I mean, Kevin Bacon tells it a lot better than I'm telling it, but the idea was, uh, can only do a couple of these because everybody gets motion sickness, and there's nothing like a bunch of vomit flying around the air until you lose weightnesses, and all that stuff has to land somewhere. Uh, so that was the funniest part of the story, I think. But I think it was Steven Spielberg. I could be wrong. Was not directly associated with Apollo 13, the movie. I think that was a Ron Howard production, if I remember right, or was the director. And apparently, Spielberg happened to be around that day and said he loved the footage, and he convinced Ron Howard that you need to film about 10 minutes of on camera footage of this, which means they had to do that climb and dive routine 40, 50, 60 times, something crazy, and deal with just whoever's going to get sick is going to get sick. We can edit that out later. Kind of like this podcast. We just talk, and I edit out whatever I need to edit out later. Like I will edit out the earlier section of my blank camera, probably. But yeah, I just found it really interesting. The behind the scenes, the how to, or how did we get here, sort of thing. That always interests the hell out of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, you
So
bring up you kind of bring up a point of what are the pervasive problems in computing today, and how are we going to fundamentally address them so we can actually make them go away? And unfortunately, just security, certainly cybersecurity is the biggest one that I think of all the time. And aside from the people aspect of it, where you
right,
trick them into giving up their social security number, how in the world can we actually fundamentally say, look, this computer system is secure? I don't care if a hacker gets in here and steals everything on your disk. It's just they don't have anything that they can deal with.
right,
And I think that some of that probably exists within the federal government because they need that, and they probably not want to share that. And I know just from other people that work in the defense industry, it's like, yeah, we have we have a lot of stuff that we bring to the table in terms of that because it's just so mission critical. But some of those and I'm not sure the government wants that out because they count on all these bugs for us to hack the other people. So
Yes, right. That's exactly right.
yeah,
Yeah, there was a great article in the Wall Street Journal earlier in the week, and apparently whoever the new head of the NSA uh, was speaking somewhere. I don't know if it was in front of Congress or just or whatever it was, but he made the point that his biggest cyber concern is not necessarily theft of information or command and control types of things. And he was specifically attributing this to the Chinese, is that we've got all of these things now lurking in seemingly innocuous places. Like, and the example he used in particular was water facilities, water plants. And, his point was that they may be even less concerned about, the Russians taking over the electric grid or something like that. But, that the Chinese, if a conflict with Taiwan ever escalated, that at that time they would unleash all of these lurking, bots or bugs or whatever you want to call them. And 80% of the water facilities in the United States go blank, can't operate. And we don't have any water. Or things of that nature. So it's one of those. Okay, you got a bigger problem to go deal with than Taiwan. Go deal with it, and I'm sure we would, and we'd figure it out. And it might take a while, and some people will die, or they'll whatever. But that was an interesting perspective that he would, and that he would come out and say that. I was a little surprised that he talked about it. Again, I guess at that level, all the foes know what all the other foes are basically doing at some level. But it's the what you don't know that's going to get you, right?
And the other part of it is, if you read in history of the wars and all that, what public officials say and what reality is, doesn't always not very close.
It ain't close necessarily. Yeah.
Right. So if you're sitting there and say, hey, I got this weakness, you're probably pretty sure that you got it contained. And
yes, right.
You're just trying to make them believe that that's,
that's it's a honeypot. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really hard to get it. And that makes perfect sense. Why do that? Why would you give away your cards on something that important? So the disinformation campaign,
right.
Interesting, the government's so much interested in getting rid of it is they're very good at it.
Yeah.
And for some good reasons, and probably not. In other cases, it's political.
So the other technology thing I was actually thinking of this morning as I was thinking about what we might talk about today, and this may be a long conversation, maybe a short conversation, but you and I obviously both like to play golf, and I was thinking about, and I don't remember what made me think about it. I think I was cleaning out my garage a couple of weeks ago and came across a box of not incredibly old golf balls, but they were, I think they were, Callaway make a brand called Chrome or something.
There is a Chrome brand. I don't know who makes it.
I don't know. Yeah, I thought it was Callaway, maybe not. But it got me to think, because I haven't played those in a long time. I actually have kind of fallen into Kirkland branded Costco golf balls. Way less expensive. Seemed to me like, at least for my level of skill, perform as well as a Pro V1 does, and I feel fine with it. And if I lose one, it costs me $1 a ball as opposed to $4 a ball, so I feel better about that. And I do lose my share, but it got me to thinking about when I first started playing golf, when I was probably, I don't know, 14, 15 years old, something like that. And I remember two balls in particular. One was, and I don't remember the brand name necessarily, but you remember the old balata covered balls.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the days where that was the ball you played if you really wanted to put a lot of spin on the ball. If you wanted to control your golf ball, not necessarily hit it 1,000 yards, but you wanted to have good control on it. And those balata covers tore so easily, at least with me hitting it. if you hit it just a little thin, you were going to put a pretty good smiley face across the side of that ball.
Yep.
And then the opposite end of the spectrum is if you wanted to really pound a ball, Pinnacle was the brand name that I remember. Those things were as hard as rocks. But you couldn't spin those things. They were hard to control around the greens. But by golly, if you were just grip it and rip it, want to hit one down the middle as far as you could hit it, and hope you didn't put too much spin on the ball because it was really going to go left or really going to go right if you didn't hit it squarely. And just how far we've come with, now you've got people like Jack Nicklaus and other people talking about, okay, we've made some of these golf courses unplayable because of the combination of factors in the golf ball. So now, we've created this entire industry around golf balls, and it's just, I don't know. I was just thinking hard about how much the technology has changed over the 45 years or so that I've been playing golf.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wrote a blog, not on my daily blog, but on one of my other blogs, and it dealt with the golf swing and how golf balls. The basic premise is the golf ball doesn't know what you want it to do. It's like, okay, I want to hit a little draw. Golf ball doesn't know that. And I had a lot of people, well, how do you hit a draw? And I go, well, do you want to know how I do it, or do you want to know what you need to do to the golf ball that it understands?
Right.
And then I break it down, and your club has got, your club's going to hit the ball, and there's 3 axes, X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
So it's, could be you'd be striking it down, or you could be coming across it, or whatever. And the club has a velocity. It has an acceleration, which is actually the key point to a lot of my game. And then, assuming that you hit it center. I mean, if you hit it, all bets are off. But so if you want to, hit a high fade, then you need acceleration, and you need to move the club from the outside to the inside. You got to be striking it, from the ball's perspective. You got to be coming from the right to the left.
Yeah, as a right-hander from right to left. Yep.
Yeah. So, and if you want to hit a low one, you got to be at least, not necessarily decelerating, but you better not have too much acceleration because the ball will come off. People are like, well, how in the world did you hit that shot? And I go, well, because I know how to accelerate. I had one on the 9th green the other day, and it was just a nasty shot. It just over a bunker. You had to hit this thing so soft, but so high.
Yeah.
And it doesn't bother me. I got my gap wedge out, and I was playing with my wife, and I told her, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this full swing, but it's not going to be very hard.
Yeah.
And if I do it right and catch the ball clean, the ball is going to pop way in the air, and it's going to land either just on the green or just on the collar, and then it'll be good. And in this particular case, I actually pulled it off. Unfortunately, the green was so sloped, the ball ran off the green anyway. Yeah. It literally was. There was no way to stop it. But it's like, I know what I need to do to the ball, and then I know how to do that thing that gets the ball to do what I want it to do. And just that indirection is people just don't get it. They think they just kind of want to go from, here's what I'm doing, and I expect the golf ball to do it if I do that, and without the intervening step of understanding. So
I for whatever reason, I remember one of the shots I learned pretty early in my playing days was a similar shot, I think, to what you're describing, what I would just broadly call a flop shot, where there's still a good bit of club head speed as the ball approaches, or I'm sorry, as the club head approaches the ball. But you make minimal contact with the ball. So while say you've got 100% effort coming through, but only 10% of that effort gets imparted to the ball. The other 90% of it either goes all the way through or it goes into the ground or whatever the case might be. And you learn how to, and then you start talking about, you're talking about the 3 axes. Then you start thinking about, okay, flat swing, steep swing, outside in swing, inside out swing, downward, thrust against the ball to, to kind of pinch the ball off the ground and, to impart lots of backspin on the ball, as the case might be. So, and it takes, my wife has tried to play a few times, not that many times, but, she's just such a competitive person that if she's not Tiger Woods after 2 rounds, it just no longer interests her. And I keep telling her, and she just doesn't seem to get this, that, look, I've been playing 45 years and I still suck. So it's, what was it? Was it John Feinstein wrote the book, Golf, A Good Walk Spoiled? And, that's got to be the point. Yes, I want to play better. It's competitive. I like that aspect of it. I like the social aspect of it, where you're having a couple of beers or a cigar and walking around with your buddies and, all that sort of thing. That's great. And if I happen to go out and shoot 73, that's a bonus. If I don't lose every golf ball I have in the bag, it's probably a pretty good day.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. See, when we played this last time, I'm up 2 golf balls, so I found 2 and didn't lose any. And
Yeah,
to me, that's just like, oh, hey, it's a lot cheaper to play when you don't have to buy golf balls all the time.
Right. Well, and the thing I point out to Jennifer a lot is, because she growing up, her dad would like to watch golf on Sunday afternoons, and so if we happen to be home and around the house on a Sunday afternoon, there's a good chance whatever golf tournament is on is probably on a TV someplace in the house, because it's just kind of a relaxing thing to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And it just still amazes me that even at the tops of the leaderboards, how quirky some of these golf swings are. So I try to impart to Jennifer, look, it doesn't matter how, like the old saying is, on the scorecard, it doesn't say, you don't have to draw pictures. It's not a matter about how, it's how many, at the end of the day. And, when you see a Scotty Scheffler and his footwork, the guy looks like a dancing bear out there, but he's the number 1 player in the world. And in my estimation right now, by a lot, it's not particularly close from a consistency perspective. And then you've got people, like John Daly, who, takes the club back so it's damn near vertical behind his back, not horizontal to the ground, but, almost to 90 degrees, that sort of swing. And then you've got people like, the smaller hitters, like a Corey Pavin or somebody like that, who's had what I call his old man golf swing for 40 years now. He knows he's not going to hit the ball 320 yards. He's going to hit it 270, but it's going to be down the middle, and he's going to have a club or 2 more to the green than the next guy is going to, but he's a good long iron player, and he's a decent putt release. He was. I don't know that he plays that much golf. I don't watch a lot of senior tours, so I don't know if he's a senior guy out there or not. But I always used him as the example, because I met him once at the Muirfield in Columbus, and he's no bigger than I am. He's shorter than me. I'm 5'8". I'd say he's probably 5'6", maybe 5'7". Probably weighs less, probably weighs 140, 145 pounds, or at least did in the day. And, a guy like that can hit a ball 270. Good for him. Because I sure as hell can't, at least not consistently. And certainly if it's uphill, no. If it's downhill and downwind, maybe.
Yeah, that's fun. I think the only thing I do in my game that is unusual when I look at the other people playing on the golf courses is I tend to hit my irons really high in the air.
Yeah.
To the point where it's really sometimes hard to track them for other people, because they don't expect it to go, 150 feet in the air, whatever it's doing. But when it comes down on the green or something like that, it'll put a puck mark in that green because it's coming down almost vertically.
Well, and you say that for whatever reason, this brings back a memory. So back in the day when we were working together and there was a Mead Golf League, I want to say we played a couple of different courses. Did we play that league at Community at all?
Not when I was involved in it.
Okay, so that was it down at not Springboro, but someplace south, Miamisburg, maybe someplace down that way.
Yeah, Jamaica Run was the one that we
Jamaica Run. That's what his. I couldn't think of it. And I just have this memory of the first tee in that league. at the time of day we were playing, which was someplace, teeing off somewhere between 4 and 5 o'clock, somewhere in that range. And just, I think that tee shot was dead into the sun, as I recall.
Mm-hmm.
And you were one person that shot I hated playing with you because I could never find the golf ball. You know, you'd hit it, and you even your driver. I think you hit a pretty high ball,
Mm-hmm.
and it would get up in the sun and just lose it. So, and at that point, it's like you're kind of up to the guy that hit the golf ball to kind of figure out, okay, was that a pull? Was that a fade? Did I hit it right down the middle? I have no idea. And you just kind of hope like hell somebody caught a vision of this golf ball.
And it's interesting because when you play enough, and I used to be able to do this, is I could pretty much tell where the ball is going to be, just even if I had my eyes closed and never see it at
Yeah.
all. I played a couple of holes, like after dark, standing on the 18th tee, literally going, okay, there's no way I'm going to see this ball past the first 20 feet.
Yeah.
So I have to pay attention to the feel. Do I feel like I was coming across a ball? Did I feel I was doing this? And I never lost a golf ball that way. I always found it, which I think that just says when you actually use your senses, you actually can pay attention to them. They work. It just most of the time you don't have to, because the only one you use is your sense of sight.
Yeah. Well, and so similar story, I guess, would be, what they call the match, that started out as Tiger versus Phil and a partner, something like that. And these things have moved into these made for prime time. They figured out that in a prime time window they can get 12 holes of golf in legitimately without feeling rushed. So they find these courses, and then they bring in like professional lighting. So the whole golf course is basically lit to some fashion, but it's played in East Coast prime time. So it's, really pretty dark out. So if somebody hits one offline, that's going to be a problem. But as long as you keep it in the fairway and on, around the greens, there's enough lighting to find it. But I still, I see that stuff, and I've never played under those conditions. I'd find that hard. Because I think I'd probably quit doing what you just said, which is you do rely upon, okay, that felt kind of flat. I felt like I got it off the toe, all that sort of stuff. And you get a sense of left, right, solid, not solid, whatever the case might be. And I just think in those conditions, you might lose some of that. Now, somebody that's making $40 million a year playing golf, maybe not, but me, certainly, I think I'd lose my sense of, where'd that go?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny when I started playing, really nice golf courses, and just I had to get over this fear of gouging the fairways
It'll go back.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I generally, not on my longer irons, but certainly 8-iron in. I'll take a pretty good sized divot typically.
Yeah.
Mainly because just the way I position the ball back of center, and as I try to tell my wife, the golf swing goes this way. If the ball's too far forward, you're going to clip it and blade it. If it's a little bit back, you're going to hit it on the top side. But my swing, it actually just tends to work out where I get a lot more spin off of it, a lot more height off of it. And just been doing it for years, and it's we'll see. We're supposed to play tomorrow, even though there's a good chance of thunderstorms. We'll see whether or not any of this conversation helps my golf game tomorrow.
Well, sometime when it fits your golf schedule, we'll get you down here and get out and play some of the courses around here. I mean, there's some dandies like Kiwa's Ocean Course, obviously, is probably the big name here, but even the neighborhood I live in, Dunes West, it's an Arthur Hills course, and which is generally known for undulations on and around the greens, but it's one of those courses that suits my game because it's hard to lose a ball off the tee. It's pretty open. So you can spray the ball around a bit and not get hurt too bad. But as you get closer to the green, you better have your game dialed in.
Yeah, it's funny because back when I belonged to Sugar Valley Country Club, which was a very tight course, and after playing it for a while, it's like I learned to hit the ball straighter because I
Yeah.
had to. You just didn't
Yeah.
have a choice. You just had to put the ball where you needed to put the ball. And there were times I shot in the high 70s, which is the best I've ever done, like 77 or something like that. But those are the days where I hit the ball so straight that I always had shots to the green, and my short game back then was pretty good. And I made more pars from a chip and a putt than I did from actually landing on the greens and all that. But now that I'm in a course that's a little bit more wide open, I tend to spray the ball more.
Swing it a little harder.
Yeah, it's just like I ought to convince myself on the tee. No, this is really tight, and you really do need to hit the ball straight. You don't hit it.
Right.
I hit the ball. Even I'm 68 years old, I'm still hitting the ball fine. I mean, there's no lack of distance in my game. It wasn't what it was, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I'm not playing. I'm playing the blue tees, which are the younger guys typically do. But I have not given in to playing the white tees yet, even though I could. I'm not going to go to the quote senior tees as they used to call them, because I don't have to. And I feel like that if I did that, I'd probably start hitting the ball not as far. So as long as the course isn't unplayable from the blue tees with my current distance, I'm not going to give it up for a while.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, good chatting with you as always. And you're not traveling anytime soon, as far as I know. Well, I think last time we talked, your next trips were probably college football related. So,
yeah, we're going down to see the grandkids the last week of June down in College Station, Texas. And in fact, before this call, that's what I was doing. I was looking at Southwest flights and other flights to see, can we get down there without breaking the bank? Which it's going to be bank. It's not going to break the bank, but it's going to be bank.
Yeah, you have to open the bank.
Yeah, that's not a cheap ticket.
All righty, man. Well, I'll talk to you next week then.
All right.
See you, buddy.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us today on Our 20 Days. Be sure to subscribe or like our website at our20days.com to make sure you receive all updates for new episodes. And again, thanks for joining us at Our 20 Days.